Okay. All right. Well, welcome, James. Maybe just get started. I'll tell you a little bit more about me in a second. Maybe if you could just give us a quick synopsis of who you are and on planet Earth and what's going on with your life and that kind of stuff, just so people have a sense of, if they don't know you, who they're talking to or listening to.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all. My name is James Astley. I'm a 29-year-old. I'm from Australia. And, I guess things started really changing in my life when I was 17. I was diagnosed with cancer, leukemia and lymphoma. So I was very sick and, I thought I was going to die kind of thing. I did chemotherapy for a few years. And during that time, I put on like 25 kilos. I lost all my hair. I was, really sick. And I was really inspired by a personal trainer who helped me get my health back to also help other people out of their suffering like he had done for me. So I became a personal trainer for 7 years, very, very passionate. During that time, I did a lot of drugs, partying a lot, and also developed an eating disorder, bulimia. And then I ended up working on a cruise ship and had the best time ever. I was traveling around the world, giving lectures on health and, doing the best I could to teach health, even though I had some health problems of my own. And then I met a man there who was very wise and told me that eating animals was bad karma, which was a huge pivotal moment in my life. I started looking more into the health benefits of not consuming animal products, as that's something that I always thought we needed to do to be healthy. And realizing how much healthier it is not to eat animals, I became very passionate about advocating for that kind of a diet. Then I learned more about the ethics behind it, how cruel it is, the way we torture, we, mutilate, we kill animals for no better reason than because they taste good. And so I became very passionate about advocating for animals, even though I never really cared about them before. And I did a 10-day meditation after meeting this Indian man who, the Indian man who told me eating animals is bad karma, because he said that, he knew so much of this interesting kind of knowledge through meditation. During the 10-day meditation, I had an idea to do a 1-year vow of silence to raise awareness for something I cared about. And the only thing I really cared about at the time, that I was strongly passionate about, was the animals. I also had a little epiphany there where I decided I would never do drugs again. And that was 4 years ago, and that's been, exactly what happened. And I spent the rest of that year planning the 1-year vow of silence and trying to get over my eating disorder. And during learning about, the vow of silence and what I was in for, and also about, more about the topic, more about animal ethics and the environmental devastation of animal agriculture, and the health side of things and all of this, I just became extremely passionate, and I learned that I needed to go vegan to be consistent with my values, to be consistent against all types of animal cruelty, not just some types of animal cruelty to some specific animals. And I went properly vegan. I kind of went back and forth for a while trying to figure it out and get my head around it. And then on the 1st of January 2014, the day my vow of silence began, is the day I went vegan, the day I left my eating disorder behind. I travelled around the country for that year in silence, spreading awareness in different ways, writing a blog, and I ended up cycling as well from Darwin to Sydney, which is 5,000 kilometres, just solo, so I could show people that you can be a healthy, strong, fit vegan, which is a misconception that a lot of people believe, that you can't. And then when I broke my vow of silence, it was live on Australia's most popular TV show, which is called Sunrise, most popular morning TV show. And that interview, it went viral. I spent a lot of time figuring out what I was going to say to, on that for the first time I spoke. That interview went viral, was seen by millions of people all around the world. And since then, I've just been continuously giving speeches on my experience and what I've learned. And I've done about 100 free talks now at universities and events and schools. And apart from that, I love to skate and surf and, hang out with mates, go to the beach, and just typical stuff. But I think, the majority of my life now is dedicated to speaking up for the voiceless, speaking up for animals, and trying to encourage people to become vegan and, make this world a better place.
Yeah, I saw that interview with you on Sunrise. tell me what it felt like being there, because as an observer watching it, it looked like you weren't taken seriously. Like they almost, particularly Koshi, he doesn't seem to have opened his mind to animals on any level whatsoever in terms of the fact they're sentient beings that have feelings like us humans. Was that the case? Is that what it felt like? Or because that's what it looked like as an observer?
Okay, well, it wasn't actually Koshi. So I was really...
Oh, wasn't it?
No, it was the dude from
Who was it?
No Deal, Andrew O'Keefe. It was supposed to be Koshi.
Oh, that guy. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So it was supposed to be Koshi, right? And everyone was warning me, "You're not going on Sunrise, man. Koshi, he's so this, he's so that. He's not even going to let you talk." And I was like, "He's going to have to let me talk. I haven't spoken for a year." And they're like, "No, he still won't." So I was like, "Oh my god, really? Who is this guy?" And then I got there and I sit in the chair and you chill in this waiting room before you get on the, on the couch with them to have a chat. And they've got one of their screens up, and you know how they've got that rolling banner across the bottom, and it says this is happening, that's happening, and it said Koshi is away on holidays, and I was like, "You're kidding me!" Such a good omen. So I thought, sweet, this is going to be so much better now. That made me kind of chill a little bit,
right?
And then when I sat down in the chair and I said my piece, and I guess I didn't feel disrespected at all. I just felt like they didn't really know how to respond. I'd spent 10 days in meditation figuring out what I was going to say, like 100 hours of meditation, and I got out the day before, and I said this thing that had taken me that long, literally, to figure it out. I think it was just a really big opening statement for me to say. Like it was very strongly worded and deep, and I just felt like they didn't feel like they could respond. I don't think they knew how to respond. And
did they say anything off camera?
Sort of. So when they responded, I had a feeling maybe someone was in their ear just sort of saying, "Man, this guy's a vegan, and we're sponsored by Pork on the Fork." And one of the woman interviewing me, they're farmers in the family, and I just felt like they weren't really interested necessarily in that. And then, so I was really shocked when I said what I said, and they didn't respond to it, about my message. And they just said, "How does it feel to be talking?" It really threw me, actually, because I had a lot of other things planned to say as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I can't believe they didn't say anything. But I was upset about this at first, after the interview, and they said, I said to them, I'm like, "Man, you only asked me one question, and it was the one I told you to ask me. Is that an interview to you guys?" And he was like, "Sorry, we ran out of time." And I was still kind of trying to figure out that I was allowed to talk again, so I couldn't really say much. Like, there was so much going on in my head.
I bet.
Yeah, and then I left, and I was angry. I'm like, "Man, I blew it." I said one thing, and it was such a short interview, and I was really kind of upset. And I was like, "Just relax, man. Everything happens for a reason." And I was like, "No, it doesn't. That's just what people say when things don't go their way." But actually, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because it was a short interview. It was 3-4 minutes. If that was an 8-minute interview, it would probably been viewed far less times. Like I said, it's being viewed by millions of people. So I'm really glad it was short and sweet. And if I'd have said more, maybe I would have said too much or messed it up. So the way it stands, it came out perfectly, and it's been a hugely inspiring short video for people to watch. It's been put in many different videos that have been shared as well, and I think it encouraged a lot of people to either learn about or move towards or become vegan, and it inspired a lot of vegans to be more active, or inspired some more creative activism and things like that as well.
Yeah. So what do you think then about, from your experience, obviously you've travelled through a lot of different headspaces, I guess, and experiences of life and tasting life from varying degrees, from taking drugs to not taking drugs to more spiritual aspects of life, and then, becoming from someone that, as you said, didn't really respect animals' lives to the complete opposite. What's come out at the end of all that? Like, as far as your take on what's going on in humanity and life on Earth and what we are and why we're doing what we're doing, and has it left you with some clarity about who you are in the midst of all this and what's happening on this planet? And
that's some big questions. Well, I mean, what's happening? All right, first of all, I should say that what's happening on this planet right now deeply upsets me. And, you know, I have a lot of sadness over it at different times in my life because of what's happening. That I can't stand injustice. I can't stand unfairness. And I see it everywhere I look. You know, I see it every time I walk past a butcher. I walk past someone ordering a chicken burger, you know. I mean, and this is just the animal thing. This is just the animal side of things. There's so many different injustices. But that's something that I just find, you know, so upsetting and so unnecessary. It doesn't have to be like that. It's so easy to resolve others of so much suffering and so much cruelty. And, you know, that's the main thing of being vegan. So I guess it's bittersweet because now that I have learned all of this, you know, truth about what's happening and how far off the mark we are. We say we're civilized, we say we're humane. How far from the truth that is. In fact, we are sprinting in the opposite direction, a lot of us. So there's that, and, you know, I see that there's just so much work to do. Decades of work, lifetimes of work, I don't know, but a lot of work to be done before, you know, we really change the hearts and minds of all the people on this planet. I hope it can happen. And that's the other part of it, is that, you know, that was the bitter side. On the sweet side, I'm seeing so many people change. I've changed. I did not care before about others, especially about animals. You know, I was a self-centered person, and for me to be able to change, for all these people I see changing every single day, you know, hunters who are going vegan, and dairy farmers and people at slaughterhouses, and just general people, I feel there's so much hope as well that things are changing and anyone can change, and it's just about helping people move in the right direction. So that excites me, and that's why, you know, I do what I do, because I feel like the world can change and is changing and needs every single person who knows to do something about it to help it happen. You know, not just go vegan, but go vegan and then help others do the same, and all the other, you know, things that are happening on this planet as well. Just generally be more compassionate, kind, loving people, more peaceful people. What are we doing here? I have no idea, man. I guess for me, I'm just trying to increase the peace and spread the love and good vibes. I just think, you know, our purpose is to be happy and to enjoy this gift of life. And I feel like we can do that, but we'll never fully be able to reach our potential while our fellow earthlings are suffering, especially while it's our fault that they're suffering. So I feel like, you know, it's not just better for them that we help them out of their suffering, but it's better for us as well. You know, as a more general thing, this whole planet, the amount of cruelty and killing and violence that's happening, let's just say for animals, where it's 1.5 trillion animals every single year exploited and slaughtered for foods and products we don't even need and are better off without. There's so much violence in the air, and that's why I'm not surprised that so many people feel stressed and depressed and tired and anxious and trying to drug themselves with drugs or with television or with food or whatever, because the vibe is so heavy and so filled with negativity, and people don't realize because they've been born into it. It's always been this way, but it's there. You know, the cruelty's in the air, and I just feel like when that lifts and passes, and when the balance goes like this, you know, the cruelty drops and the peace increases, we can all feel so much better. So I just want it for, you know, for them and for us too.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I mean, good answer. Because we are way off the mark, like, absolutely. And that's, you know, my contribution is to try and raise the bar on the level of conversation to match what's actually happening. Which means we've got to look at the truth of the status of life on Earth, the truth of how much damage we've done, the truth as to why we're doing it, and the truth as to what that's doing to us, and how that you can't separate the two. Because obviously everything we see on the planet is representation of the, you know, collective energy of our individual minds. And if we've got a world that's just filled with death, abuse and cruelty, in some sort of deceptive layer of disguise where we're trying to make out that it's actually not a bad thing, it tells us something about what's going on inside each individual human brain. So, you know, the truth is we're not healthy at the moment. Psychologically, we're a mess. You know, it's a little bit of we've got to get out of this thinking that it's just certain individuals that get a bit of anxiety or depression that are the ones that are off track. And often if anything, they're often the people that are more on track because they're more sensitive to life and sometimes can end up with those conditions without knowing why. And they may not necessarily be in an evolved place, but they're often closer to moving towards the truth because they can't hack it in the system. And it's the system. And yet we reward people that are successful in the system at the moment. That's the the norm. But of course, to be successful in a sick system means you have to be somewhat mentally, not doing okay upstairs to be doing well in an unwell world.
Or just playing the game really well.
What's that?
Or just playing the game really well.
But to play that game really well, you can't be a healthy person, right? There's just no way you could be a man of honesty and integrity and decency and then be playing this game really well. Because to play this game means you've got to be manipulative and deceptive and you've got to walk over the top of everyone.
If to get to that level, then it has to be a certain amount of corruption and things like that involved. But does it always have to be? Can you not get up there playing the game really well in a positive way?
No, I don't. Not via their system. No, we've got to create something brand new. Like otherwise, what are we doing? Because you're just playing the same game in a different disguise. And look, one thing I do with my life, and it's been an interesting journey for me. Like it's a little bit like your vow of silence in a way. I've had a vow of not going down any pre-trodden pathways that humanity has taken. Like in my mind, there's lots of things I could do with my work. I've got I've got a background in all sorts of things, and I've ended up being writing books and talking about human behavior and life on Earth. That's kind of my thing now.
Cool.
And I also counsel vegans and animal activists to try and find strength and clarity with the journey that they're on. That's probably the biggest thing that I'm doing, as well as talks and stuff. But it was a long journey for me where I started in the business world. In fact, I started studying psychology when I was young, and I thought it was just so far off track. It wasn't hitting the mark as to what I was already seeing going on in my own lifetime.
Yeah.
And then I went and thought, well, what else am I going to do with my life? So I studied acting for a while, and that was fun, and I met interesting people, but it just seemed a bit futile for me personally. I couldn't see where that was going to take my life, but I did it for enjoyment. And then I thought, well, I might as well get a business degree because the whole world runs on business. So I thought, well, I might as well understand it. So I got a marketing business degree, and then I worked in advertising agencies around the world. And it didn't take long before, the corruption becomes so evident, and what you've got to do to be successful in that realm became very clear. So more and more as each year went by, I became more determined to walk a pathway in my life where it had to have complete integrity, and that was my guide. So the truth of life was my guide, and if that meant missing out, then I miss out. So I didn't care what skills I had or whether I could grab my business or even my knowledge today and turn it into something. And you know what I mean? Like to really go down some existing pathway and try and make something of my life. I don't look at it like that. I'd rather take this chance that it will be what it will be. And so it's not an outcome-focused journey. Otherwise, you become problem-solving and you're very narrow, and all you're doing is looking at your objective and trying to walk towards it, but that makes you blind to life. And that's what we're doing as a species at the moment.
Yeah.
So my vow of silence is, my version of it is to not partake in society as much as I possibly can. And what that really means is the nature of thinking that they utilize. And I can tell you it works because I can feel it. As soon as I feel myself problem solving on any level, my whole being changes. I feel so human, but not human in a good way, human in a restrictive sense.
Normal.
So I just make sure as long as I don't problem solve, I'll do the best I can, and I'll create what I create. But what it means is what I create is more pure and true to me, as opposed to doing something because I think it's the right thing to do, or because I should do it, or because people like me more, or there's an expectation. Or a panic response to life, you know what I mean, where I see the animal suffering, which I find abhorrent and, obscene to levels beyond description, what people are doing to animals. It sickens me every day and night and morning and moment of my life. It's hard to exist on a planet where your own species walks around, driving animals down. It's like we in Adelaide had this big blackout in South Australia. I'm not sure whether you heard about that the other night. And, there it was. I was driving from my mum's because I was over keeping her company while there was no power. And I'm driving home at 11 o'clock at night, and it's pouring with rain, pitch black. and the animal trucks are still pouring down the road.
Wow.
You know, like it's relentless.
Yeah,
you know, nothing stops them. They don't
totally.
care if the power's out. Nothing stops the animal abuse industry, where we're going to slice and dice them and kill them and murder them and hang them and jab them and bolt them and then stick it in our mouth and smile at our family and make out everything's okay.
Yeah.
So to me, you know, the whole planet's upside down. Everything is screwed. And I think we got a long way to go before we admit that. And this is the area where I think we're off track. Good people too, people doing a lot of good work in the world. And it's not that I'm against what they're doing, but I think they're downselling the truth of where we're at as a species and what we actually are. You know what I mean? We all talk about positive and negative thinking, but isn't it about just truth, not positive or negative? You know, don't we need to just look at life the way it is and look at who we are and and I think once we face the truth of what we are, then we might unleash some change, because I can tell you from my work, that's the key. There is an awakening waiting to happen within each and every human being, but it requires something to trigger that awakening. And it's like it takes us out of our self-greedy driven mode that we're currently trapped in, because people don't know they're trapped in it. They just think that's life. This is what we are and this is what we do. Hence they'll justify, you know, the collective outcomes of human society. But I think if we face the truth that we're actually verging on psychopaths as a species, in the main, you know, we think a psychopath is this weird guy that, you know, there's 1 in a million out there and you've got to be careful of the psychopath. Well, our behaviour is all psychopathic. It shows a lack of concern for anything but self. We struggle to feel for anything. We can't even connect with our own family, with our partners, with our animals. And these are the people close to us and the animals close to us, let alone caring about, you know, the pigs driving down the road in the truck. So for me, we've got a lot of work to do, and we've got to start pushing harder, and I don't mean in an aggressive way, but we've got to be far more forthright with our communication. And I think we've got to raise the bar and get more honest and real with each other and stop flittering around like everything's fine. And having said that, this is not a panic response, right? If it's a fear-based response, it won't work, because then we become narrow in our thoughts again, and we're back trying to enforce what we want, as opposed to just facing the truth, because I think facing the truth is enough, personally. So there's a lot of what you were saying earlier that I feel like is really, you know, hitting where we need to look at. And as I said, the biggest thing is you saying, you know, we're just a long way away from facing the truth. And as you said, heading on a bullet train in the wrong direction. Literally, all of society, all of our leaders, business, the majority of the human population will obviously follow government and business wherever they take them. So, you know, the builders of the train are taking us somewhere in a completely wrong direction. And then it's up to people like us to build a world which is in the truth, which is obviously something which is more, I think, a powerful journey, but it has to be a calmer journey. Like, it can't be like we're rushing to get somewhere, because otherwise we're just going to do the same insanity on a different track. You know what I mean? Well, like, sure, we've taken the train off that track, but now we'll just put it on another stupid track. So same thinking in a different disguise. And, you know, even veganism can end up being that. Anything could be. So this is about us changing the nature of how we exist, ultimately. And if we don't, then to me, I'm not sure why there's any debate. We're screwed. Like, you know, that train's going to hit a dead end and it's not too far away, or the planet's going to tell us to piss off pretty soon. I mean, like the weather in Adelaide. I mean, I've lived here, you know, on and off most of my life, and I don't know how this could not be global warming, but I don't want to say it is because I don't know, but I've never seen anything like it. September traditionally is one of the best months in Adelaide for weather. It's warm, it's beautiful, you know, it's traditionally just always good. Now here we are nearly October, and we've got some of the worst storms and weather that we've ever seen in this state, as far as worst I've ever seen. So, you know, to me, we're running out of time, and we need to get real, and we need to get real as soon as possible. Like, why wait? What are we waiting for? What's all these plans about building pathways of learning, and over 20 years we'll phase out factory farming and replace it with humane killing or stupid shit like that? Why don't we just sit down today as a species and start talking to each other and get real with each other? You know, until we do that, I think that's enough. Isn't it?
Is that enough? It's definitely the most important thing, I think, to educate each other and encourage each other to do better. is just the truth enough? In some ways, I think definitely. The truth is so powerful. You don't have to lie, you don't have to scream, you don't have to yell, you don't have to rush, like you were saying.
Yep.
But unfortunately, even the truth sometimes just, I'm sure you've got the same experience. You can say every single fact and figure, and and it's not enough. And I think that's because of where people are at. They're not caring necessarily about the planet. I know this because I wasn't just a few years ago. I didn't care about the planet. Someone else would deal with it. They'll fix it. I'll be dead in however many years. I won't need to worry about it anyway. Or it's about animals. It's like, yeah, animals, they're not like us. They're not intelligent. I have to eat something. I just think that, unfortunately, a lot of people aren't considerate enough, compassionate enough, empathetic enough. Choose your adjective. And when you're trying to tell them the truth and they're still not buying it, I think that it does have to sometimes be more. You have to sell it to them. And there's all these benefits for us, and you'll feel so much better, and look how delicious the food is. And I wish it wasn't like that. I wish you could just sit down with someone, spend 5 minutes, and then they go, "You're right. Yeah, tell me what I need to do." That's what I thought would happen. That's why.
But if we sell it though, James, aren't we just luring them in with the same techniques? Getting back to what I was saying earlier, we're using the same techniques.
Maybe. I'm like, if there's a better technique, I'd love to learn it.
You know what the better technique is? No technique.
Well, what do we do then?
We just be honest and real and stop caring about outcomes, right? If they listen, they listen. If they don't, they don't. Let's just keep building truth and growing in it. And if we're always focusing on trying to get other people to listen, it weakens us. It weakens us as a person because you end up caring too much about whether somebody listens or doesn't listen, or do they understand or not understand. And then you strategize better ways to get through to people. And then every time you do that, you're going back to that same narrow system of thought that we've used for the history of mankind, which is a fear-driven pathway of thought. It's all about, we're scared that things don't go the way we want. We've got to stop wanting anything to be anything at all, as far as I'm concerned, because the truth is enough. And obviously, if you sit as a conscious being in the truth, it's not about wanting cruelty to stop. Cruelty has to stop.
Yeah,
so
I know what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is if you live in that truth, right, which is a far more spiritually connected space, a consciously connected space, it's not a fear-driven space. You've got to tell your insecurities and fears to piss off and get out of my home.
Yeah.
And then have the courage to just walk a pathway of truth, whether people listen or not. And if they do, they will, right? But how else are we going to find out what the truth is if we manipulate them into becoming vegans? And then we're just going to be the same stupid idiot species not eating animals, but we'll ruin it some other way. You know what I mean? We'll find a way to mess things up. Of course we will.
Sure.
Well, how are we going to do it? We're going to create more laws. It's going to be a law not to eat meat, and suddenly some guy in the forest is found starving eating an animal and we'll shoot him. How are we going to do this unless we just find it from within in a real way, right? Which means it can't be because we're going to benefit from it. It can't be for that reason, right? Otherwise, we're chasing it for the selfish reasons again. I just feel we've just got to really hit this through and talk about it until eventually the clarity of it will do the job.
Yeah, it's very clear.
This conversation is not one that needs a sales pitch.
No, it's not complicated. It's not complicated at all, and it's totally straightforward, and we've got every argument in our favour, and I know that, and you know that, and people that have heard the message know that too. But I still think, and leading by example, I couldn't agree more. It's one of the best, that alongside educating and encouraging and inspiring, I think is the best thing. Leading by example, educating, encouraging, and inspiring. And if everyone, I don't know if it's manipulating, maybe it is, but I still think it's coming from a place of truth to sell the benefits, knowing that that's where people are at, where they're at a kind of point where they want to buy, they want to buy it if it's good. And is that going to solve all the world's problems? No, there'll probably be other problems, and I don't know what they'll be. I guess I just hope that they'll be, and I don't think it's that much to expect, that there would be far less problems and less cruelty and less suffering, which is my main thing I care about. Less suffering. It would be great if everyone got all enlightened, But before that, I just want the suffering to stop. That's my first point of call. And then we can get enlightened or whatever. But so I think that knowing how people are right now and using that, I just think that I don't know a better way. I just know that this works and this is helping people go vegan. And when you go vegan, we were talking a minute ago about people don't feel compassion, they don't feel empathy, even to, people they know a lot of the time.
Well, not really connected, yeah.
Yeah, and I think one part of that, and it's something that felt like it was truth for me. It's a quote, a Buddhist quote, and it's that the eating of meat extinguishes the seed of great compassion. And I'm sure we probably both take that further and say the consumption of any animal products or exploitation of animals extinguishes the seed of great compassion. And so I think that however you get them there, if you've got to do this to get them there, if you've got to, do whatever to get them there. But once they get there, then maybe something new can grow inside of them. And I guess for me, my main thing is just to get them there. And in my own experience, once I got there, so much changed. It wasn't just that I stopped eating animals. It's that I did feel more compassion and I did feel more love and more empathy and more joy and more connected. And, like I'd stepped out of that matrix or the matrix and seen the world more for what it is. And I guess for me, maybe my part is just that, and then maybe because I don't fully understand exactly what what you mean when you just say talk just about truth and just say truth. I don't know exactly. We might even agree, but I guess my job, I feel like, is just to get them to that point where they're not extinguishing their seed of great compassion, and then hopefully maybe someone like yourself or something can take it from there.
Well, look, sure. I still think we can do what you're doing in a way where, look, the main thing is that you're solid within yourself.
Sure.
And that you're working on yourself as much as you're working on awakening others. Otherwise, you're asking people to change when you don't even know how to change. Because just because you've become a vegan doesn't mean you've changed. It means you stop eating animals.
Yeah.
Right? And that doesn't necessarily mean, like if we could grab 1 million vegans right now and probably find that they're extremely defensive and wouldn't want to look too closely at their personal life if given the opportunity. And yet they're standing in the face of other people asking for massive internal reflection on one's life and behavior and who they are and what they're doing, and which will obviously create a dramatic impact and effect on their entire life, like their family, friends, partners, lifestyle, you name it. Going vegan is a massive change to anyone's life, a beautiful change, but a big change. So you're asking a lot of people before you've truly found the strength and development of your own inner being. And I think that is the key, because you think about it, if you're talking from the more you have cleansed and created purity from within your own existence and more honesty, about what you are, about the fact we're even on a human journey. I don't kid myself. I don't just because, I do a job where I help humans, I help animals, I write books, I try and bring truth into the world, but I'm still doing it. I have to do it not as some enlightened energy that's floating above everyone in a pure state of perfection. I'm having to do this via a human being. So for me to do this, I've had to get real and honest about the illness of my own brain.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I can see it. Definitely. Being a human being is weird.
It's imperfect, for sure.
Yeah, it's strange, It's a strange thing.
Weird, man.
but in an awake state, all that weirdness disappears, and suddenly being a human being becomes an extraordinary thing, right? So to me, it's worth the journey of getting through the weirdness of our brain and fear and insecurities and all the manifestations of our thoughts, our obsession with the past, our obsession with the future, our need for more. We can either get lost in that and keep justifying it, and one of the ways we never face it is to keep our insecurities and all the things that we do and don't like about ourselves. They end up being, we spend most of our time and energy defending and protecting them than we do walking a journey of projecting out into the world and giving to the world. because you can't give to the world when you're internally thinking about yourself all the time.
Yeah.
So, to me, this is one of the keys. We've got to release ourselves. Like, it's almost like, I think we've learned enough. You know what I mean? I think individually and collectively, there's enough learning there that we're ready. We're ready to step forward and let go in a way and grow up and go from these scared little animals to empowered beings that can truly be the caretakers of the planet. I think that's just waiting for us to do it. And I guess I'm getting real about what that's going to take, because I can see the work it's taken on myself. Mm-hmm. It hasn't come out of nowhere. I was born in a sort of a caring state. I never had any desire to hurt other kids or animals or anything like that. So I got a good kickstart. I had a family that encouraged, emotional communication. That was a good kickstart for me. And then I took it upon myself to work out, the rest, basically, because it's not like my family were talking about veganism or spirituality and stuff like that. But it all came from living a life of integrity and compassion. Everything I've learned, that's what's afforded me the learning.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that quote you said earlier about what the Buddhist quote. To me, it's all connected. It's all the same thing. If you truly want to experience the enormity of the gift of life, you have to cleanse your human self and rid yourself of the evil that pervades our minds. And the way to do that is to learn to understand fear and not let it be the guide of your existence.
Couldn't agree more.
And then once you've done that, you're free, and then away you go. So for you, James, why you? Right? Like, were you a nice guy waiting to be woken up, or were you, what kind of guy were you? Like, really? Because you said things to indicate you weren't the most caring man on the planet.
I was.
So why you? Why have you changed? Why have we seen this two Jameses emerge on planet Earth?
Yeah, I was always somewhat, I was a good person. Like, I was an okay person. I wasn't a bad person. And, I did fine in school and I had a lot of friends and all that. But, I was always acting, like, try to be the people that I thought people would like. Try to be the person I thought people would like. And, as I grew up, I started to eventually grow out of that. But, there were times in my life where I don't really like who I was, and I thought I was, just a real, especially during the drug times, they really put a cloud through my mind, and they really changed me in a very negative way, in a lot of different ways. And in saying that, perhaps there was some benefits from doing that. I'm not sure. I question that, whether I would have been better off to never do it at all. I don't know. But I guess I've always been influential. I've always been influential around my friends. I could convince them to do things, come partying with me if I wanted to, a lot of them. And when I was a personal trainer, I was a personal trainer for 7 years, so I learned how to speak to people in a way that would motivate them to change. And there's a lot of things that set me up for taking that vow of silence. Like, that was a pivotal point in my life where, you're talking about fear. There was so much fear around that, around putting myself out there for the first time in, the public eye, and doing something where there was a very good chance I would fail. I had no idea, I couldn't Google other people's vow of silences. I had no idea what I was in for. No one else I could find that had done it. And, there was a lot of fear, and everyone's telling me, don't do it, man. Please don't do it. We don't want you to do it. And I was like, so there was a lot of fear, but, in my life, and numerous times. And
sorry, just to interject. Why were they telling you not to do it?
They thought I might go crazy. I've had, during the drugs, like, there's some pretty wild things that happened, but one of them was that I got a drug-induced psychosis, and so I think my family were worried that might happen again or something. Other friends, different people just thought I would fail. They thought it would be ineffective. What's the point? And I guess maybe just fear of ridicule if I put myself out there. What will people say? This and that. All fear stuff, man. All fear stuff. And luckily in my life, numerous times, here's your comfort zone. And I had stepped out of my comfort zone, continuously, a little bit more, to the point where when I thought of doing a vow of silence, everyone else thought it was this really out there idea. And to me, I just thought, I've done some pretty out there things. This isn't that further from what I've already done. Kind of like, you dive off the first diving board and you go, oh, that was all right. And you get to the second one and it's a bit scary, but, you did the first one, it's not that much higher, you can do it. And continuously I just went up to quite a high diving board, but Vow Science for a year is quite high diving board for a lot of people. But I'd already done the diving board just here. So I was like, I did that one, I can do this one. And, you know, I've got a couple other things coming up in the future that are my next diving boards that I have fear about, but...
Can you talk about them, or are they...
Well, I can. I can definitely talk about the first one. So in 4 weeks from yesterday, I'm getting tattooed for 24 hours straight. And we're doing that as a way to...
You get what?
Tattooed.
For 24 hours?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Why?
Why did you ask? Is that what you said?
Yeah, why?
Okay, so the idea, it's a campaign, it's called Think 24, 24-hour tattoo challenge with ink to make you think. We've got 3 tattoos, 3 people getting tattooed, we're all vegans, and we're raising donations for a few charities.
Right.
So the idea behind the, like one thing about the Vow Science that was good is that anyone can be interested. You don't need to care about animals, you don't need to care about veganism. You just, if you find an Aussie guy going around the country not talking for you, is it all intriguing? You can follow that journey, and then you'll get the message. So with the tattoo thing, we're going to reach a crowd of people who wouldn't necessarily be interested if it had something to do directly with animals or veganism. It's extreme, people like extreme things, so they'll check it out because, can they do it? It's a challenge. And I like tattoos, so I'm excited to get 24 hours more tattoos on my body. That'll be fun too. And the tattoos have a message. There'll be a tattoo saying this with, a message about this. So, it's about raising awareness too. And we're going to live stream the event. So for 24 hours, we'll be having conversations. People will get to know us, what we're about. So basically, it's just an awareness and fundraising campaign for, to make the world a slightly better place in our own small way on that day. And also to inspire more creative activism. I'm not really into the march down the street screaming "meat is murder" kind of vibe. I just, I don't think it's wrong. I think if people want to do that, that's fine. And I've done it in the past myself. But I just don't think that's a very good way to target the mainstream with a message. Yeah. And I just think it kind of falls on deaf ears. So, I'm just trying to do some different things. Anyway, my point was that it's about... I've got so much fear around that. It's 24 hours. It's going to be a lot of pain. Can I do it? Maybe. Good chance I can't. It's going to be really hard. But I'm going to try. And that's the fear. It's about feeling that fear and going, who cares? Maybe I'll fail, Maybe an Olympic athlete who trains for years will fail. They don't not do it because they might not come first. You just do your best and you try, and there's fear. There's always fear. But you just go for it, And so that's what I'm doing. I'm going for it, and I think it's about 3 things personally. It's about feeling the fear and doing it anyway, not letting fear dictate your life. It's about taking leaps of faith. So when you have this idea come to you, then you go for it, and you just, it might be something you've never done before, never thought of, something just that no one else has ever done even, but it's a leap of faith that it'll work out. Because this idea or this thing has been given to you like a gift. And I think it comes, and this is the next thing, it comes to you when you put out a clear intention. And I think that's step 1. First thing we should do is put out a clear intention. What do you want? How do you want to contribute? For me, a while back, my clear intention that I deliberately thought about and came to the conclusion that I want to be an instrument of truth and of peace and contribute to making this world a better place. Then I had the idea to do the Vow of Silence. It was a leap of faith, and there was a lot of fear. I didn't let fear dictate my actions, and I took the leap of faith after putting out my intention. So I think they're 3 important things, that each and every one of us can do to get the ball rolling.
So when you throw yourself into these challenges and fear kicks in, does it bring up, if you cleanse your life of your past and pain and insecurities and things that may have happened to you, or does it bring that sort of stuff up? Does that come up as well? Or is it really just fear of that actual moment that you're feeling?
I'm far from a Buddha. But I'm a lot closer to that than I used to be. So, it's a long job in my experience, it's a long job to cleanse yourself of these mental impurities of fear, of self-doubt, and all this kind of stuff. And I've worked hard on it. I haven't just become like this one day. I used to be how I was, competitive and slightly arrogant and, anxious and all this kind of. There's a lot of surface level stuff. I kept my cool on the outside, but there's a lot of stuff happening inside. That's why I'm sure I went to drugs. That's why I had an eating disorder. And still, like, to be clear about it, I still every now and then will eat for the wrong reasons. I'll eat when I'm bored, or I'll eat too much because it tastes good. So I've come a long way. I'm not bulimic anymore, but I'm not perfect either. And that goes for pretty much everything in my life. But it's been a lot of work to get it. Like I've read a lot of books on that kind of path, and that's learning it intellectually. But an even more important part, I would say, is to learn it on the experiential level, where you're experiencing the truth. And I've done a lot of meditation. I've done 5 Vipassana courses, so 5 10-day meditations where you meditate 10 or 11 hours a day. I've followed up those courses with daily meditation, and that's really helped me progress down this path. But I think it's a long path, so I plan to keep walking and as much as I can. But the good thing is that there's nothing overly special. I mean, we're all special in our own way, but for me to get to this point wasn't because I'm somebody special, I don't believe. I just think that I walked a certain path, and other people who will walk the same path will get the same results. They'll come to those same places where they have dropped some anxiety, they have become more peaceful, they are more compassionate. It's just about walking that same path, I think. And so that's what also, excites me, is that I see other people getting similar benefits from doing similar things, and if we can just get more people motivated to walk that same path, we can all feel better.
And do you think that path is walking away from fear, ultimately? Like, do you think the human species, if we could just leave fear behind, that antiquated, primitive, dumb system of thought that we've been utilizing forever, where we run away from bad feelings and run towards good feelings as a survival technique, ultimately, do you think that that's what we need to do? We just got to walk towards truth and leave fear behind, and that slowly sheds off, like you're saying. It doesn't happen instantaneously, but we start shedding off the shit and dropping all the crap that we've been carrying along and weighing us down for so long. Because without fear, it would appear we have no baggage. And without baggage, we feel better, we think clearer, we see the truth, we embrace things quickly. If someone approached you about something you didn't know about, like animal cruelty, you would embrace it instantaneously. There would be no debate or argument. So for me, this is the journey for all of us. Can you see that as being what the journey is all about yourself, from your experiences so far, that ultimately that's what's happened to you, maybe, that you're on a journey to become less fearful and become a more empowered being?
Definitely. I don't know if that's a whole part, only because I haven't given it that much thought to think this is because of fear. So I haven't, is that the root cause? It could be, I'm not too sure. But I know that that's been a big part of it, just letting go of that fear and doing what I felt was right for me to do. I'm not sure if that's the whole of it, but maybe it is. You sound like you've spent more time thinking about that than I have. But I know that that's a big part, because, even right now, just when we go back to veganism, I think a lot of people get it and they agree and they know the food's good and they know they'll be healthier and they know it's better for the planet and they care about animals. Why don't they do it? Because they're afraid that they're going to get ostracized. Not everyone else is doing it. I think that's such a big thing that's stopping people from making changes. It's that fear of, people are going to judge me. People are going to say this about it. People are going to question me. And that's just one obvious element of why people resist change, because fear, like, that's a huge part.
Well, think about it. Think about it now. Like, you might say you haven't thought about it enough in the past, but think about it now. You think anything that stops us from moving forward in a clear, evolved way is fear is the only thing. Nothing else. There's nothing standing between you, me, and the whole planet, between getting on with this journey, other than fear. Fear convinces us to hold on to what we know, even if what we know is sick. right? It's like a person in an abusive relationship. You know, everyone's like, why do they hang around in it? Because they're too scared to leave.
But
You know,
yeah.
if you weren't scared, you would leave. You don't stay in an abusive situation. You don't become an abuser unless you're scared. All bullies are scared little insecure people. People that turn a blind eye to cruelty. Let's say the majority of the population, let's say 90%, aren't really the bad people. You know, they're not the guy that runs Kentucky Fried Chicken or the meat industry or whatever the case may be, that actually knows exactly what's going on, and they're actually deliberately manufacturing that pathway. So that 90%, it's still fear, right? They're so scared that they can barely get through the day and worry about their mortgage and their electricity bill and if I got my kids in the right school, did I buy the right phone? Oh no, there's a new phone out. They get scared over shit like that. They get scared over everything. Scared, do I look okay today? Scared, does my friend like me? Did I say the wrong thing? Did I say the right thing? Like, I think we need to face how bloody terrified we are.
Yeah,
and we're all making out we're not.
No, it's a really good point. Yeah.
And I think the closer you look at it, the more you see it, right? And then when you see it, you can be free of it. But we're not going to be free of it until we admit that that's the case.
100%. Yeah, you've got to know what you're up against before you.
That's right. Otherwise, what are you doing? What are we all doing if we don't even know
in the dark,
who we are or what holds us back? And because to me, you know, then the question comes, well, what's fear? You know, what is it? Is it an independent energy that's guiding all of life on Earth? Or is it something that we create from our minds? But ultimately, this universe, which is, you know, billions of years of evolution or creation, however you want to look at it, doesn't matter. The end result is we're here and something pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
You know, the atoms have got together, and you know, the atoms in you and me are the same atoms that used to be a rock or something somewhere on the planet, and now sitting here, our atoms are having a chat with each other. Like, let's not underestimate how incredible that is.
That's phenomenal.
But we've also got to get real that there's something that holds it together, and fear would appear to be some form of intelligent energy that creates a certain mode of life.
Yeah.
And that mode of life is the one that I think we're recognizing, and I think that mode of life is what you've stepped out of. I see you as a man that maybe didn't do it deliberately, but you are ultimately on a journey to wake up beyond this energy that has previously been creating, you know, this guy that didn't care about the animals or maybe was a little bit selfish. Like you said, you weren't a bad guy, but everything you described is the kind of behavior that fear creates.
Yeah.
And if you remove fear, people don't behave like that anymore. They behave completely differently. So to me, isn't the answer pretty straightforward? We could solve all the problems on this planet if we just get to understand what fear is, how it controls our brain, and learn and start developing educational programs to teach ourselves how to not be a victim to fear. And I think that would stop it all. And in the meantime, all the other shit we need to do, of course, you know, like you were saying, to get people to stop eating animals ASAP and all that kind of stuff. Yes, that we need those foot soldiers out there making sure that shit happens. Yeah. But the bigger picture is for the future of humanity to transcend into something sustainable and real. Then we have to collectively get together and admit that we've become zombies to fear. You know, we're not us anymore. We're robots. Fear creates a conceptual reality, right, where nothing's real. So whatever you're told, you become. Mm-hmm. If you're told eating meat is good, you eat meat. If you grow up saying if your mum's vegan and says being vegan is good, you become a vegan. But it's not you. You know what I mean? You're not awake. You're not real. So I think one of the keys on this journey, and I think your journey exemplifies that, that it's about walking away from fear. And that when I talk to you, that's what I hear. That's what I see. I see a man growing up and finding true individual thought, right? Where you are the creator of your life, as opposed to just another clone running around, behaving in a manufactured, predictable way.
I feel like I'm moving in that direction. Yeah, it sounds right. I still feel like I said that. You know, I'm still a slave to fear in a lot of ways, and I notice it regularly. But I think, like you said, you know, like being aware. You know, like I've known there's a thing going on, but to just, you know, sometimes it helps to put a label on something to make it a little more clear and obvious. And so, yeah, maybe after this chat, I'll be able to work a little more directly with that, I think. So thanks, Mike.
Well, if you want to read about it, ask Dean, grab one of my books as you leave. We'll give you a
Sweet.
copy of that, because it kind of explains it, you know, and
Perfect.
I'm just running people through it, because as far as I'm concerned, this is exactly what's going on. Like, to me, it's not unclear. It's very clear, and the more I explore it, the clearer it becomes. The more profoundly aware I become of the power of it. And I look at it in my own life. Like, I use myself as the test for all this. And I look at it, and I'm like 24/7, I'm watching fear and how it manifests, the sort of thoughts it creates, how a situation arises, and I react. And then as soon as I've had that situation react, the thing that does the damage is not the situation. My mind goes off on a fear-driven pathway, developing thoughts and stories, and then I end up lost in a story. Right? Without fear, I don't create stories. It's different. It's more free-flowing, expansive thought. So you don't get trapped in it. Whereas when fear's got you thinking, you get trapped in your own thinking, and you don't even know what's happening. So this has been going on for so long. Humans can't see it going on. Right? We don't even know it. So we keep trying to solve all the problems on the planet without actually identifying that it's the fear-driven pathways that created it. So fear's going to convince us that we're actually fixing the planet and doing something good, but it's just taken us wherever fear takes us, right? And fear has a kind of an expression of itself, and it creates a certain outcome, and it's not the outcome that you and I would like to see on any level whatsoever. I mean, just watch it more with your life. Like, from now on, you watch everyone you know. Just look how shit scared everyone is. It doesn't take much to find out.
Yeah.
You can hurt someone's feelings in a millisecond.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're all very, very delicate, fragile, emotional states. Absolutely.
And yet cold as ice about the suffering of poor little baby lambs and dogs skinned alive in China and Korea. Oh yeah, whatever. You know, they're just dogs, they're just lambs, who cares?
Steak, man.
So they go from cold as ice to pathetic. And don't say that about me. You can't put down, I'm losing weight. Don't tell me I'm overweight, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So fear creates that, right? It creates this weird combination of pathetically insecure, but cold and nasty and selfish all at the same time. And that's what we are. That's what we've become.
Yeah.
And all of our society represents that.
We need to let that go, man.
Oh, we sure do.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you'd think I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing, but I think that has been what I've been doing, because, you know, and I think I would say a lot of it is because of the technique of meditation I practice. It is about, you know, you said watch it, you know, notice it for yourself. You say that you observe it in your own mind. And that's what the Buddha did, you know, as the story goes. Like a scientist, he observed himself. He observed in his own mind, in his own physical body, like what is happening. And the technique that he passed on is about self-observation. So it's observing the physical sensations of your body while instead of reacting to them. So instead of saying, oh, a good sensation, great, that feels good, I want that to keep coming. Or when there's a bad sensation, you know, resisting, I don't want that to be here, I don't want that to be here. He's saying that always leads to suffering, because if you are craving something good, or you're enjoying something good and you're getting attached to it, as the nature of the universe is that everything's impermanent, it will pass. And as it passes, you suffer because you want it to stay, but it's not staying. Same with the negative sensation. If that is here, we resist. I don't want this to be here. You know, we fight it, or we try to run from it and distract ourselves. But it is here, and you are just creating another layer of suffering on top of that. And why it's important with the physical sensation. So for a while, I used to really watch my thoughts, observe my thoughts. What are they saying? And you know, oh, that's just a story. That's not true. They just pop up, just like a broken record. And I used to really pay a lot of attention to that after reading some of Eckhart Tolle's stuff. If you've read, and that's what really got me on that path, and that helped. With the Vipassana technique, I started trying to do that during Vipassana, and they said, you can do that if you want, but that's not Vipassana. That's not the teaching of the Buddha. His teaching was with the physical sensations, because he wanted to find the root cause of our suffering. And the root cause wasn't our thoughts, and it wasn't our emotions. His belief, you know, through his experience, as the story goes, if you believe it, is that the very first point of contact, when you see something or hear or taste or touch or think something positive or negative, when something that elicits a positive or negative response, the very first thing that happens is a physical sensation comes on your body somewhere, and then you either observe it or you react favorably or negatively. And it's through that reaction to those things that you start craving or resisting and start becoming attached to those kind of things, and that's how suffering happens. So, I don't know. Oh, we have to time out, bro.
Alright, let's have a little...
Change battery.
Oh, we're changing batteries, man.
How do you I'm still recording, by the way, for the under space. Might as well just keep rolling my deck, changing camera.
You're not going to edit it, are you?
How do you feel about these kind of conversations?
I love them. I feel excited by them. I hope they help other people. I always get something from them. If it's just me teaching something, then I learn it more strongly. If it's someone like yourself who knows something that I don't, then I get to learn something too. And I love it because it just reminds you there's something bigger than all that fear stuff. There's something bigger than all those worries I had on the way here before I got here, and that should be what we're talking about.
That's right.
Yeah, like it's so important. It's so important. Every time I get reminded by it, I'm like, yeah, and I just feel so inspired to grow and to become a better version of myself, and then to share that better version of myself with other people, leading by example. So hopefully they can all become better and just, like spread those good seeds so people...
Well, like you said, driving along worrying about things. Like just think how, I bet every car you see driving around, there's a person in there worrying about something.
Guaranteed, man.
And think about it, and think of the enormity of what is being called upon us as a species to deal with the planet and what's going on, and how could we do that when all of our energy goes into worrying about shit all the time?
Yeah.
Whether it be whatever, the topic, it's almost what we worry about is irrelevant. You know what I mean? It's about learning not to worry. Of course, this all gets back to fear. So really the topics become irrelevant, and this is something that I teach people, is that I'll teach them to understand fear via the topics that they'll present to me. They might say, I'm having problems with my partner or my family, or I'm feeling lost, or I don't know what to do with my life. The animal cruelty thing's getting me down. I help them see that it creates the same outcome. You end up trapped in them. They're just topics. You end up being fearful. They tap into your insecurities, and then you end up trapped in them. So I end up showing them how the mechanism works, that we're trapped inside an actual mechanism for real. Right? This may be shocking to humanity to find out that that's what's happened to us, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
We are inside something that is controlling our behavior and making us do weird shit like eat baby lambs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah.
This is like a sci-fi movie where we've already been taken over. The takeover isn't going to happen in the future. It's already happened, right? This is not us.
No one would live like this if they had a choice. No one would live with constant anxiety and worry and stress.
Why would we?
It makes no sense. Yeah, it makes no sense.
Of course not. So why don't we get real and admit that something weird is going on? And the proof is, and I could prove it if I could have the stage to do it on. Give me any person anywhere and give me a chance to show the difference between them when they walk in and them when they walk out. Two different people. And what's the difference? They walk in with fear, they walk out without fear. Sure, it'll come back, but you can show it in a fairly short period of time, the difference. I've had even people grab the chair and thinking they were about to float.
Whoa.
Because fear, because suddenly, the lightness of it, right? You're free, your mind is free. You can think in a big, huge universe of thought and space. Emotions become rocket fuel rather than something to judge and analyze and put in a place, and so we're constantly reacting to our emotions. So our thoughts and emotions play off each other in this insane cycle of nothingness. Really, like we're actually doing nothing, in effect.
Yeah. But
telling ourselves we're doing something, and I think that we're going to get once we wake up, we're going to look back at the history of humanity and realize that was like our starting point. It was like we had to go through that rough animal, terrible phase of survival to get to where we're at now, and we probably had to think that way to survive in a more rough, in a more difficult time. Whereas now we've got the awareness, we've got the technology, we understand the planet, we understand a lot of important things, But the only thing we don't understand is the fact that fear and see, what I'm proposing here is quite huge. I'm saying it has 100% control. It's not something you feel occasionally. I'm saying your happy feelings are fear-driven. Everything is fear-driven. So, which is, and I can tell you, I get a lot of resistance about this topic, but I'm 100% convinced. Even if I didn't look at another human being, I can feel it in myself.
Yeah.
It's trying to take me over all the time, and I've devoted my life to not being taken over by it, and that's why I won't go down problem-solving pathways and building my business, and that's why I won't promote myself, because only fear leads to that. So I won't promote myself. What comes to me, or like people I speak to, or, I let it happen more organically rather than trying to make it happen. And that keeps fear out. Fear doesn't know what to do with me because I don't give it traditional pathways to step into. So this can be done, right?
Can you not want to grow your business and like get yourself out there and do all that, but coming from a place of love or something else? You know what I mean? Like, does it?
Well, love can still. There's plenty of people doing the love one, and they're still terrified people. Yeah. So fear loves it. Fear's thinking, oh, this is great. This person thinks because they're being loving that they're all clear. But fear's still got them, So
wouldn't it help just, like, you don't need to be the world's best piano player. You just need to be better than someone else to be able to teach them something. You know what I'm saying? So wouldn't it be good, even if you're not perfect, even if you've, still got a ways to go, you can still help others who aren't where you're at yet?
Yes, you can, as long as you understand the fundamentals, and this is what I think is lacking, as to what the key areas are we need to look at. Somebody, for example, could tell someone, you've got to keep an eye, you've got to understand fears and how that manifests and controls human behavior without being an expert, because you can be encouraging it. Look, I'm teaching it, and I'm not like I said, floating around like some energy. I'm just telling everyone, hey, look at this. This is there to be seen. And so I'm not saying, listen to me. I'm saying, look, don't look at me. Look at fear. Look at society. Everything's about fear. The whole thing. Look at governments. How do they get us to behave? Like, we have a census in Australia, and they threaten us with a criminal conviction if we don't fill out some stupid form that they created, which really, if you read the census form, was a joke. A joke. It didn't give any insight. It didn't mention veganism or didn't mention all the up and rising new awareness journeys of consciousness appearing and new ways of thinking on the planet. It didn't address people concerned about the future of humanity. It was all about stupid shit. And so, and I could go to jail potentially, because I didn't do what I was told.
Yeah.
As a 54-year-old man on a wise journey, they're treating me like I'm still an idiot, and I'm meant to submit to that. So I just think we need to rise up and stop being so submissive and pathetic, and start working out what it is that's making us so pathetic, right? We're weak. We're weak, and we just toe the line, and then there's other assholes that take advantage of our weakness. And, and they tend to be the politicians, the business leaders, and they're laughing their heads off as they live in their billion-dollar mansions. Maybe that's an exaggeration, $1 million mansions, while we're, or like scared little people doing what we're told. But then we make out we're not scared, so we take it out on our dog or our partner. Any chance we get to have a power trip, we take it. And that's the nature of the beast, right?
Do you think fear? Do you think? Sorry to interrupt you, man. Do you think?
No.
Do you think that fear has any place? Like, I mean, I think you said something earlier that was interesting. That we needed it. It was necessary. It got us to where we are. We probably needed fear. Oh, we better worry if a tiger comes and whatever. But what about now? Like you said, it's like 100% control. Would it be a positive thing to still keep it a little bit?
No.
You don't reckon?
No, don't need it at all. Zero. It's a simplistic, dumb way. And look, when you awaken a human brain to a fearless state, your ability to read and feel and see life is on an enhanced level. You don't need a fear response to work out whether I should leave the situation or whether I should do this or not do it. Should I say this? You don't need it anymore. Like the ultimate vision would be that fear is extracted from human thought in the entirety of what it is, in the recognition that that's what we have to do and that that's what got us to this point. But if we continue to let fear guide us any further, we're screwed. So fear's got to go. There's nothing good about it. It doesn't create a good person. You've got to be a very good person to not to have fear in your system and to not let your behaviour come out in an outcome that is destructive to something or someone. Right? You've got to really be a solid human being with some lucky, maybe born with some goodness in you that can stand up against your fears. But that's not the majority, right? So the majority need help. Yeah. But the problem is they don't. If I said this publicly, suddenly this was broadcast to the planet, they'd probably say, "What a crock of shit! I'm not scared." That's what people say to me all the time.
Yeah, right.
But we know that's not true, and we know that anxiety and depression and all those psychological conditions, they all come out of fear. Every single one of them is a manifestation of fear. It started somewhere with a fear-based thought, and that thought grows like a sick little tree, and then it creates this construct of fear-driven thought that you end up trapped in an extreme example where fear really finds a way to take over your whole existence. And when that happens, then you really, you're in a tiny little place. But it's still all the same thing. Because I can tell you, when I got into the psychology profession, even though I dropped out of psychology, so I'm not a psychologist, by the way. Yeah. I'm just a human being like you, having a look at what the hell's going on. And sure, I've worked in these industries, but that doesn't change the fact I'm still me. I'm just a guy looking at life, having real life conversations. I don't need to have a label on my head, or to me that's all got nothing to do with anything. Yeah. But when I went into psychology in the early days, I got invited to work with a guy in Melbourne because he thought I would be good in that industry. And so he mentored me and trained me. And what was interesting to me, I got given people to look after and deal with that were way out of the realm of what I'd met in normal life, like people with schizophrenia or extreme conditions. And what I very quickly established within, weeks or a month or something was that it didn't matter who they gave me. I could see it was all traced back to everyone had a moment where that started, where they didn't have those conditions. And then I thought, oh, wow, I wonder what's causing that. And then I realized, they're problem solving. And then I thought, what causes problem solving? Fear creates problem solving. And then all of a sudden the pieces started dropping in together. And it took me 6 months to really get it. And then I left the psychology world, left that center, and just went off on my own journey because I figured I've got it now. I can see what's going on. Now I want to develop that, develop me so I could learn how to master being alive on planet Earth without fear being this weird, ridiculous thing that tries to control my life. And it's so obvious and clear. And so for me, it's kind of exciting, but the challenge is, okay, we got to get the human species to admit that this is even happening. And that's going to be the interesting challenge because this is not a normal topic and this is not the one we're talking about. We love talking about the outcomes, right, which I understand need to be. Like animal cruelty is an outcome of a fear-based human process of thought. Child abuse is an outcome of fear-based human thought. Drug abuse is an outcome of fear-based human thought. You tell me any problem on the planet, and I'll just say to you, just like the person with schizophrenia or manic depression, it all comes back to the same thing every single time. So that's good news, right? It's not as complicated as we thought. So we stopped focusing on the outcomes and start addressing the issue. And the issue is the energy guiding our thinking. And once we get that get a grip on it, we'll see massive change on this planet, like very quickly.
Yeah, cool. Sounds really good. So what do we do, man?
Well, we start by having conversations. We start by the fact you're prepared to even have this conversation.
Yeah.
People don't like having this one because fear tries to hear it, and of course fear hears me as someone trying to take away its power, right? So I'm not silly. I know fear's listening to everything I say all the time, including in my own head. So you've got to be ahead of the game, right? But the more we talk about it, the more we rise above it, fear loses its power because fear needs you to think in a certain way to have any right? If you live in an expansive state, fear requires small construct type thinking for it to have a home. It can't live it just dilutes. If you're in a big, it just disappears slowly but surely. Yeah. And if your fear kicks back in, it's not like it's in your big expansive space. Fear is actually dragging you back into a small space, and then you start thinking in there again, solving your life in there again, and fear's like, I've got this entity back. right back where I needed it to be, right? So to me, it's like, well, let's just start, and someone like yourself's prepared to have the conversation. Well, I think this is how it begins. Right? And looking at you, it was very obvious to me. This is a man walking beyond fear. And I can see the changes, and I can see the way you're talking and the way you described who you used to be. You know, it's very clear that's the transition that's happening. And it's not like there's no clear cutoff point that we can see at the moment. I'm just putting it forward that I think one day we'll be free of it. But at the moment, yes, it's a journey of lessening its grip, right? One little bit at a time, taking its grip away, stopping it having this power over us, and then allowing us to finally express ourselves. And I think, honestly, if I could extract fear out of every human's brain right now, they would look around in shock and horror as to what the hell we've done.
Oh, I hope so.
They would. Guarantee it.
Yeah. Guarantee it. Wow. Oh, fear, man. It's big.
It is.
It's I didn't really know before. But I think
you're right. Looking at, trust me. Look deeper into it and get to know it.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because it seems to be like the core of what people are running on. Yeah.
Oh, it is.
And it's a sick way of living. It's a sick way of living to constantly be in fear like that. It's so unhealthy. And it's so negative. You know, like the feeling of fear itself tells you that it's not a positive thing because it makes you feel so tense and, stressed, and it's just horrible. So and that's how we're living almost all the time. And then that
creates the building of business, right? So businesses respond, and then the pharmaceutical industry's loving it.
Yeah, they're killing it.
Oh, they are. They love it, and then and all this stress too. It's so connected to plant-based food diets. Obviously, have a big impact on our health and cancer and things like that. And you, as a young man that's had cancer, you're probably well aware of all that sort of stuff. So, but also the mental energy side of it. If you're free of fear, I'm not saying you won't get cancer, but I would say if you do, then I would say that was just locked in and there's nothing you could do about it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot you can do to your health and your immune system. And the more expansively you think, the less fear-driven you are, your immune system increases
100%.
Incredibly.
100%. I'm quite convinced that my own cancer was caused by very negative beliefs I had when I was young. And it's not, you know that fear impacts your physical body. All your thoughts impact, all your feelings impact your physical body. If you just think about sucking on a lime or a lemon, your mouth will water. Like, it's all so connected. And when it comes to animal products, you are literally consuming something like a product of fear, a product of torture, where an animal has, I think, 2 levels to it, where those actual hormones, those stress hormones that are a tangible thing, have seeped into this meat or this milk or these eggs. And you consume that. You're consuming those hormones, those fear hormones. That just adds to the problem. But then, on a more, I don't know if it's a more spiritual level or whatever, but just ingesting that kind of product of violence, of fear, and what it would do to the action of doing it, knowing that that's what it is on some level and doing that surely would add to the problem as well, and just continuously feed it over and over again.
Absolutely.
Keep it alive.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all one interconnected cycle of craziness that we're partaking in, and of course that's affecting us and ripping the essence of us. It's destroying us. It's tearing at the fabric of our being as conscious beings, and this is where we've got to wake up. Consciousness also. This is the other thing I'm trying to put forward. Consciousness is oversold a little bit in the world of spirituality. It's put up as some almighty force, but let's get real here. Consciousness has been taken over by fear, so it's not like this almighty force that's going to guarantee its way to purity. Fear is more powerful as it currently stands. Consciousness is trapped inside fear. I have to remove someone's fear to let consciousness out.
Yeah.
Right? But they can't do it themselves at the moment. This is why we've got to teach people how to do it. You can't be relying on me. How many people can I help individually?
Well, is it conscious to be fearful? It kind of, a lot of the time it is a subconscious thing that's why you're telling people, be aware of it, pay attention, notice it. A lot of the time that's why before we started this conversation, I wouldn't have really thought about fear. It was more subconscious or subtle, I suppose, in my...
Well, look, you're right. That's where it's doing most of its work, in the subconscious mind. And that, like in a pure conscious state, there is no subconscious. Like when I take people on a journey, there's no underworld, there's no sort of subconscious world. They're just one world. You know, there's a conscious world. There's not like the two separate divisions. So even though fear is playing games out here, it predominantly in the world that we're experiencing, fear gives us like the end result. It gives us a little bit of a game to play in and make us feel like we're important and doing something and successful, and it gives us rewards when we achieve. You know, when we beat the other person and run that race, or you know, we got the highest sales record at work. You know, it gives us a little boost and it gives us a moment of actually feeling good. But so that's what it gives us in the outer world. But we're completely oblivious to the fact that the true workings of it, it's like this big monster machine running our ship from somewhere that we can't even see. And this is where drugs are interesting. Like, you know, I'm intrigued at your take on this as someone that's stepped into the world of drugs, is that I can see that it's damaging people's lives, no question about it. And if abused and used inappropriately, the effects are quite dramatic. But on the other side of the coin, this planet has afforded, for whatever reason, substances, and some that even just grow in the ground, that can change human thought and allow us to experience things differently. I think in an intelligent, exploratory way where we were more empowered, it could even be used as part of the pathway of waking up, potentially. I'll probably be shot down for saying that because we see drugs as a bad thing. But I think the reason people turn to drugs is because deep down they can't stand the realm of thought they're in. Yeah. And it gives you a moment outside of fear, potentially.
Yeah, it does.
That's what it gives you.
Yeah.
But it's not a sustainable way, but at least it gives you a taste of that fact. And if you're smart enough to grab that, you can learn from it and actually see that there's so much that one can actually learn from everything.
Yeah.
You know?
I couldn't agree more. I think that's really true. You get a taste for it, and that can motivate you to... That's what happened to me. I was like, whoa, okay, this is something that I can feel. I can feel like this. How can I feel like this without the drugs, though? Because they bring some positive, but then the positive goes and there's all this negative. You know, so you feel good for a while, then you go down even worse before you started. So that was my journey. I want to find out how I can get that, feel good, less fear, more, you know, whatever, more confident and more happy and all those kind of things, without the drugs, without all the negative stuff.
That's right.
And that's something that I think meditation and different things, but especially meditation, has helped me do. And there's a really good quote by Alan Watts, which I'm going to get totally wrong, but the gist of it is that he said that psychedelics are like, it's like if you take psychedelics, it's like looking in a telescope or looking in a microscope and studying something. You know, you don't keep looking in the telescope all the time. You don't keep taking psychedelics constantly. You see something or you learn something, and then you go off and you study what you've learned. You know, kind of like what you said, you spent 6 months and you saw something and then you went away to develop what you learned. Same with drugs. I think, yeah, you can get something from it. You know, of course, like it's not 100% negative. There are positives. That's why people do them.
Yeah.
But if you just hold on to them, you know, you're just going to be stuck. And that was my experience. I felt like I was climbing this ladder of life for a long time, and then I started doing drugs. And maybe they even got me a couple more rungs. I don't know. Or maybe that came later. But I know that around this time, I got stuck here and the drugs were like a ball and chain on me. And I couldn't progress. I'd maybe grab another rung. And then I'd come back down. I'd get a couple. And I was just stuck here. And I had to let that go. You know, I'd got something from them. They'd given me something, you know, something to work with. But I couldn't continue climbing with them. I had to let
I think you doing what you did reminds me a little bit of listening to Russell Brand talking about his journey into drugs. It's almost like if he didn't do it, he might not have ever woken up. It's almost like, in some ways, I see it as long as it doesn't destroy your life, obviously. So people need to get that. I'm not saying, of course I see the destructiveness of drugs and how it's used inappropriately on planet Earth. like everything else. Take drugs out of off planet Earth, and we're still messed up full. So, let's get real here.
Yeah.
But what I do see is sometimes people that go to drugs, they don't know why. They're doing it to bust out of this reality, which we do need to do anyway. The drugs do afford that. But the drugs themselves, they open up windows and portals, like Alan Watts is saying, and then it's up to you to use that intelligently. Otherwise, of course, you get caught in the cycle of chasing good feelings again, which is where fear now is also taken over the drug use. So fear can destroy anything. So it doesn't matter really what it is we're doing. It's the nature of how we're doing it. But I still think sometimes drugs kind of forces you to mess up your life, if that makes sense, which might sound weird to people because it's all about becoming good people and better people in the system. So it does the opposite. It destroys any chance of you being part of the system. But that gives you a chance to step out of the system and reevaluate life from a fresh stance. And if you're lucky enough to have some support or people that care about you, it can have this beautiful effect of you actually transcending to a far more aware, advanced space where you end up like on a journey like you, where you're now determined to do it drug-free, which is ultimately the healthiest place to travel down.
Yeah, but I might not have ever been motivated to do that if I didn't hit quite a low point.
Yes.
And, I'm grateful for all those experiences because I hit a low point so hard that I was very strongly motivated to climb back up again. And also, I hit some really high points. I was really motivated by that to try to get back there in a healthy way. But I do, like, that's something I'll just never know. Would I have been able to get to this point without drugs? Would I be at a better point without all those drugs? Like, I feel like I wasted so much time. Not wasted, like, obviously, it's all part of the journey. But, yeah. It's a question I'll never be able to answer, but I do wonder.
Look, I really think time is a concept of fear as well. I really do. I think time is inconsequential, and I think when fear gets us to focus on time, and we become time obsessed. And I think if you extract any notion of time from your mind, you will find that then there is it doesn't matter. The truth is you did what you did, and it has worked, and you are a human being on the planet waking up. You are sharing truth. You are growing, and it's a constant journey for you. So for whatever reason, it worked. Could there have been a better way? That doesn't matter. That's the way you did it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean others do it your way.
No, that's the only reason why I'd want to know. That's the only reason why I'd care. Like, I'm happy where I'm at, but I want to know how to help others get there too. And I don't want to say, okay, well, this is how many pills I took. This is how much coke I just want to be able to tell them the best way to get there. And so that's.
I think what's important then is for you to really understand what's happening to you. Would be what I'm seeing. I think the deeper you understand the transformations that I'm seeing, for example, like easy for me to understand it because it's what I do. But if you could understand it in the same nature of what I'm seeing it, then that therefore gives you now you know how to communicate it because you're not focusing on the specifics of what you did, but it's more what you've learnt from what you did. What you've understood about life and yourself within that. That's ultimately what we need to help teach each other. So we at least give ourselves a chance to be more, to not be in jail for our whole life effectively without even realizing it. That's why we're so desperate. Why business is taking advantage of our insecurities because new products, they're just churning it out because they're feeding our insatiability. And our insatiability is because we're trapped in jail. And in that tiny little room that we live in our mind, we've got to keep feeding ourselves with external stimulation all the time because we're so understimulated internally, right? But if we can step out of that construct, that cage of thought, where our beliefs become, the bars of our prison, and we can pull our, we don't need to believe in anything, by the way, just to put that out there. Beliefs are a fear-driven creation, right? Because if you believe in something, it's instantly not real, right? The only way you can truly experience something is to not need any beliefs. You don't need to believe in yourself. That's a false assumption put forward by mental health professionals that you've got to learn to believe in yourself. It's the worst thing you can do because then you've got to maintain that belief. And life is a constant changing, flowing, evolving thing. So if you learn to not believe in yourself, fear doesn't have a home anymore, right? Fear needs beliefs to exist. So if you can learn to do that, then you've just stepped into a new transition of existence, new transition of your own existence, for example, where you could take what you've done and just really unleash it to enormous degrees. And it's not till you do that do you truly understand the nature of it, right? Because once you've done that, and you've really busted out beyond it, then it becomes so clear and you see the difference and you understand fear intimately. And every time fear enters your head, you know what it feels like and the kind of thinking it creates. So there's no more confusion anymore. So you can talk with clarity wherever you're at. You know, like you were saying earlier, does it matter where you're at as long as you've moved a bit ahead of someone, you can help them? Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, 100%. It doesn't matter where you're at. This is what I try and say to people when they come to me and they're all messed up and, you know, and they feel like, oh, I'm behind the 8 ball or I've got so much to do. And I get really clear with them. It's irrelevant. You know, whether you're a rich person, a poor person, or someone that had an abusive father or a happy life but you were still miserable in it, it makes no difference. Because once you realize that you are not any of that and that you free yourself from beyond it, but grab the learning that it afforded, right? Because every experience tells us everything we need to know about how this world works and our mind works. And then away you go, you know? And then wherever you're at, it doesn't matter. It makes no difference, right? Because once you're on the journey, you're on the journey. It doesn't... So we don't have to judge each other anymore or be attaining something in particular, you know, or think, I need to be here to be happy. No, you will permanently just be wherever you're at. And wherever you're at is in the truth. And in the truth, there is no fear. And without fear, you're alive. You're finally actually alive.
Yeah, every time you let it go, you let it go. And that's where the goodness comes.
And for some reason, you push yourself to do things that most people would be too scared to do. You know, like to not talk for 365 days of the year. That's quite an extraordinary thing to do. Like, what was that for you? Tell me more what went on in your mind.
I think it was because I knew that it was just fear telling me not to do it. I had all these good reasons why I thought this could be good because I'll raise awareness. It'll be something, you know, a life experience. I'll probably meet a lot of people. You know, like there's all these positive things I could see come out of it. And then there was just this fear stuff. Don't do it because of this, because of that. And I just realized I shouldn't let fear be the reason why I don't do this. And I just, that was mainly it, because I recognized that it was fear trying to tell me not to do it. It wasn't a logical thing, really. You know,
no, but you got it. Somehow you hit the mark. You know what I mean? Like you actually. This is why now take it further. Like really get to know it because you're on the right track.
Yeah. I think I just recognized that those kind of thoughts weren't. Yeah, they just didn't seem to. It's hard to explain. I guess those thoughts just didn't hold the weight that they might have before. You know, they just almost seemed like this is unimportant, and I felt like there was something deeper going on, like it was my calling in a way, you know, to just come out of this and to come out of that fear in that thing, and to prove to myself that I had come out of it to some degree by doing it. I don't know.
So what is it then in you, James?
Yeah.
Tricky question to answer, I know, but I'm going to chuck it out there anyway.
Okay.
So there you are recognizing that you don't want to be a slave to fear, ultimately.
Yeah.
So who is that? What is that you that's saying no to that?
I don't know, man. It's something deeper. Like it's the real me. You know, that's what it feels like. It's the real me. It's the me I'm supposed to be all the time. It's the authentic, genuine, you know, part of me before I started using fear as my primary, you know, decision maker, basically.
Yeah.
It's like beyond all that. Yeah, it's beyond all that. It's like it comes from the heart, not the head. Yeah.
So how do you find life now on a day-to-day basis? Like, do you find it still stressful and do you like, because the whole system's running on fear, right? So every time you step out the door, you're in the matrix, right? You're in that fear-driven reality. how much are you learning to not get affected by it and that kind of stuff?
A lot more, and it takes experiences. Like, for example, there's been a few times this year where I've been absolutely sledged by, other vegans and things like that, where it's almost been like a let's hate James Aspey campaign. It's been intense, man. And, there was a lot of different fears around that. I've worked hard to build trust and respect in this community, and it was all, in my opinion, was unfairly put on me, this kind of hate, because I didn't feel like I'd done anything to deserve it. And I worried that, well, if people are going to be influenced by these people's opinions, then they're going to not take on what I've got to say. My credibility will drop. That means this is going to affect the animals, and like there was all these things. And I actually got to a point where I just hit rock bottom with it. I was so stressed by it and really taking it on. And then I went, hang on, what am I doing, man? Like, this is so negative to think like this. There's always going to be people hating. That's what people do. There's always going to be fear about putting out my honest opinion. That's, or maybe there won't always be, but that's what's there. But until that's completely gone, it's not about, again, it was about realizing that I don't want to be myself now, because they're going to say this and they're going to say that, and I just had to let it go and just say, nah, it's about me doing what I feel is right, what's in my heart, and that's when I started doing it, and it was so liberating. I just felt so good. Then I went, I can be me again. I don't have to try to say exactly what they want me to say, and this has happened numerous times in the past, and every time I realized that I'm free to be me. I'm free to be me. As soon as I feel like that, I just feel like there's this huge weight off my shoulders, and it makes me so happy. And, my activism is more powerful, and I enjoy it more, and I come from more of a place of love and compassion, and I just feel good, man. Like, it's just so much better. But it still comes up. Like, these things still come up regularly, I guess, for me. But there's just so much less fear. I'm so much more confident these days about who I am and what I believe in, and say what I want to say. And, there's a lot more confidence. There's a lot less fear. And yeah, overall, I guess I'm just moving in the right direction. But it's not. Yeah, it's still a journey for me. And just little things like this conversation, man, will just make me, it puts a little bit more. It focuses a little bit more of why it is how it is. And when until you know what the problem is, you're kind of just guessing. But it really helps to be aware, make clear what the problem is, so that you can, go about addressing it. And I feel like, it's a learning process, but it's good to be on the path, man. Even if you're step one on the path, like,
that's right.
You finally found a path, great, walk, and
a decent path, a path worthy of walking down.
That's right, man. I feel like I was just walking in circles on the spot for a long time. And then there was times where I'd walk a couple of steps and I'd just go sideways. And now I feel like there's a lot of steps forward now by just staying true to myself and doing what I feel is right, not letting fear, and it's a lot of different fears, like insecurities and, I guess, it all stems from fear. Insecurities, what will people think of me, what if I say this, what if I say that, and, it's just about being who you are, being the real you, like who you are at your heart. That's what it's about, man.
Yeah, fear makes us almost obsessive about caring what others think about us, and whether we say the right thing or say it the right way or look the right way, and to be aware of that is liberating, because then you realize there is no right way. There's just you, and as long as you're honest, you will grow. So let's say I'm in an honest state and I say something that's off track, right? I won't say it any other way than the truth of what I'm saying it. And if someone then presents to me and says, "Oh, David, that's actually not quite accurate," it doesn't make you feel tense. It's exciting. Oh, really? You know what I mean? It's like, I've learned more. I know more. I've just grown. Totally. So any opportunity to rise above, to me, is a magnificent one. And like you said, just to start that, to know that you're starting the journey of not being a slave and a victim to fear, to me, is an exciting, beautiful thing to start.
Absolutely.
Yes, in the meantime, like you said, we've got to get working on stopping all this shit going on. But we've got to know that ultimately this is what's going to create the shift. This will end animal cruelty. It would. I guarantee it. There will be no more animal cruelty. And if there are, let's just say, some humans that are programmed just to be nasty, well, they're going to be so outnumbered that they'll slowly just not be able to do their thing, and then that'll die off, and then all new children will grow up with expansive minds and awareness. And because think of the schooling system that you and I grew up in. It's all about making your life. You start walking in like this as David, and then they try and narrow it down and get me to focus, and then go to uni and then get more specialized, and my life becomes narrow, And I've done the opposite. I've pushed that all out of the way and said, oh, that was all weird and creepy and disgusting, and I'm looking to create now my own life. And if I was the only one doing it, I'd keep walking down this pathway, because to me, it's the only one that makes sense. It's the only one that has integrity. It's the only one that cares. It's the only one that you develop in. And the other beautiful thing, James, when you develop an expansive space, you feel so much more, right? Because you're in a free space of thought and feeling that you need less. And when you need less, then you don't consume as much. When you don't consume as much, the planet's not having life sucked out of it all the time.
Yeah.
So there's so many benefits that we will see manifest. And not that I'm suggesting, like I said, that we do it for those benefits, but there are benefits and they are real. And I think there's enough reason just to stop doing what we're doing because of the destruction it creates, let alone the benefits of the alternative way of being.
Sure.
So what about, like, just on a daily basis, the emotional journey of James? Is it like a challenge for you every day, up and down? Do you go to bed sometimes thinking, what the hell is this all about? Or
generally I'm fairly good. I feel like most of my friends come to me with their stuff because, I feel like I'm in a pretty good place majority of the time where, I'm not perfect, but I'm in a good enough place that I'm not stressed generally. I'm not worried generally. I'm usually fairly steady and solid. And but in saying that, I still have my days. Like, actually, a recent thing that's happened to me is I realized, I went to bed about 3 nights in a row, and I just thought, what the hell have I done today? I was quite depressed by it, which is a fairly rare feeling for me, to feel quite like this about how I was spending my life. And I realized I'd just been glued to my phone, for hours on that day. Like, majority of the day I'd spent looking at my phone, basically, or a different screen. And it depressed me. And I thought, what am I doing? This is a problem. But becoming aware of it, I was able to, start coming out of that. And, I got an app that tracks how long you're on it and this and that. But I guess so. Different things do come up, and that's I embrace that. I appreciate that because I want to be better as well. I want to continuously be better too. The better I am, the more good I feel, and the more good I can do. It's a win-win situation. But so I feel like I'm doing fairly good, mate. And I don't know. I'm constantly shocked. Like, I'm constantly surprised when people, they'll comment on my videos or on my posts and this and that, how inspirational I am, or, just different very, very positive things they say about me, my speeches, how much they get out of them and this and that. And I just always find that really interesting because it's always surprising, actually, because I just think, I'm just really just being myself here. And I'm just, I'm just talking, or I was just saying, so I don't know, I guess it kind of highlights to me, I don't feel like, I'm anything special, but when people are saying that they're getting so much out of, what I say or how I say it or this and that, I just think, oh wow, like, that's really amazing, and I have, like I said, worked quite hard to get to the point that I'm at, so, it gives me more of I feel more of a duty or responsibility or something like that to, it motivates me to continue sharing myself and my thoughts and things like that. I guess I'm just continually trying to make that more of the focal point of my life, being a better person than things like you're mentioning, material goods, and even things like like partners and children and things like that. I guess that's all kind of just fallen away a little bit for me because it
Mm,
just seems like not the best way I can be spending my energy.
mm.
So I don't know. It's all interesting, but yeah, I feel like as well, like I've become less about material stuff than I used to be for sure.
Well, I think that's great. You know, I think you may not feel special, but what you're doing is special. And that's all that matters, is that what we give is special, and that we're giving something that the world needs, and
Yeah,
that's what you're doing.
yeah,
And you're a smart, aware young man that's prepared to grow in the midst of that, and not just resting
mm,
on where you're at. And I think that's probably what people are feeling and enjoying about you, and what you give to the world. Look, I think on that note, James, I don't want to push it too far with you. We've hit some pretty big topics and we've covered a lot, and I really appreciate the fact that you've shared all that with me and joined in. So it's been wonderful, and I just
thanks,
want to
Steve.
say, a huge thank you to you, and looking forward to crossing paths at the Vegan Festival and maybe having another catch-up chat one day,
Yeah,
and just see how things are going and how far we're progressing as individuals, and whether we've got more to share for the world to inspire them so they can learn to get on this journey as well, because it's in everyone's interest that they will love life and feel more empowered for doing exactly what you're doing with your life. And it doesn't have to look like your life, but they will feel the empowerment of actually facing truth, and that's the journey you're on, and that's the one. So well done, you
thank
found
you, thank you.
it.
I thoroughly enjoyed this chat. I had no idea what I was coming in for. Someone said, "Come for an interview." I'm like, "Yeah, cool." I didn't know what it was going to be about. I'm really glad it was about this. I feel like I've learned a lot. I feel like
Yeah, good.
I feel like it's pointed me in a more clear direction. So I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing the things that you've learned and everything like that as well. I've had a good time.
All right, good.